Imagine this. You're huddled in a cold, muddy trench. It's Christmas Eve, 1914. For months, the world has been tearing itself apart in the Great War, a conflict of unprecedented scale and brutality. You're on the Western Front, a hellish landscape of barbed wire, shell craters, and constant fear. The enemy is just a few hundred feet away, unseen, but always present. The air is thick with tension and the smell of death. This isn't just a story. It was the grim reality for millions of soldiers. But on this particular night, something truly extraordinary, almost miraculous, is about to happen. Something that history will remember as the Christmas Truce. Today, we're journeying back in time to December 24th, 1914, to uncover one of the most poignant and human moments in the history of warfare. It's a story that feels almost like a fable, a fleeting moment of peace in the midst of unimaginable conflict. To really understand the magic of the Christmas Truce, we first need to grasp the bleakness of the situation. World War I had only been raging for about 5 months, but it had already shattered any illusions of a quick, glorious war. The initial mobile battles had bogged down into the static, grueling reality of trench warfare. From the North Sea to the Swiss border, to massive armies, primarily the British and French against the Germans, were dug in, facing each other across a desolate strip of land known as no man's land. Life in the trenches was horrific. Soldiers endured freezing temperatures, constant rain that turned the earth into a quagmire, a never-ending plague of rats and lice. The threat of enemy snipers, artillery shells, and poison gas was constant. Days were spent in a state of boredom mixed with terror. The initial patriotic fervor had long since faded, replaced by a weary struggle for survival. These men, on both sides, were mostly young. Ordinary individuals, farmers, clerks, factory workers who had been thrust into this meat grinder. They shared more in common with their supposed enemies across the field than with the generals commanding them from miles behind the lines. This shared misery was the fertile ground upon which the Christmas Truce would grow. So how did it begin? It wasn't an official order or a grand gesture from the top. It started small, bubbling up organically from the soldiers themselves. In the days leading up to Christmas, the fighting in many sectors had quieted down. Then, on Christmas Eve, along parts of the front line, German soldiers began to do something astonishing. They placed small Christmas trees, or Tannenbaums, along the parapets of their trenches lit with candles. It must have been a surreal sight for the British soldiers peering out from their own positions, these little points of light flickering in the darkness of no man's land. Then, a sound drifted across the desolate space. It wasn't the whistle of a shell or the crack of a rifle, it was music. The German soldiers began singing Christmas carols, most notably Still No Head, or Silent Night. After a moment of stunned silence, the British soldiers responded, not with bullets, but with carols of their own, like the First Noel. Imagine the scene. 2 armies sworn to destroy each other, serenading one another across the battlefield. Voices that had been shouting orders or crying out in pain were now joined in song. This incredible exchange of music was the turning point. Emboldened by this shared moment of humanity, soldiers began shouting Christmas greetings to each other. "Merry Christmas, Tommy." A German might yell, using the nickname for British soldiers. "Merry Christmas, Fritz," would be the reply. This verbal back and forth grew bolder. In one sector, a sign was reportedly held up by the Germans that read, "You know fight, we know fight." The real miracle happened on Christmas morning, tentatively and with immense courage. Individual soldiers began to climb out of their trenches. Unarmed, they stepped into the cratered, frozen expanse of no man's land, a place that had symbolized only death and danger. Their enemies, instead of shooting, did the same. German and British soldiers, who just hours before were trying to kill each other, met in the middle. They shook hands, exchanged gifts, small tokens they had from home, like cigarettes, buttons from their uniforms, German sausages, and British plum pudding. They shared photographs of their families, finding a common language in the faces of wives and children. They spoke to each other, often in broken English and German, learning that the enemy was not a monster, but a man just like them, caught in the same absurd and terrible situation. One British soldier, Bruce Bairnsfather, later wrote about his experience, describing how he found a German who could speak English a little and we had a conversation. He talked about finding a German barber among them who gave haircuts. It was a complete, albeit temporary, breakdown of the war's logic. Perhaps the most famous and iconic image of the Christmas truce is that of soldiers playing football. That's right, soccer. In several areas along the front, impromptu games were organized. Using bundled-up jackets for goalposts and a makeshift ball, these men engaged in a friendly match in the middle of no man's land. For a few hours, the sounds of war were replaced by the sounds of a game shout's laughter, the thump of a ball being kicked. It was a powerful symbol of their shared culture and humanity, a reminder of normal life in a place that was anything but normal. The truce wasn't just about carols and football, though. It served a practical, solemn purpose as well. It gave both sides a chance to do something they had been unable to do for weeks: bury their dead. The bodies of fallen comrades had been lying in no man's land, impossible to retrieve under fire. During the truce, soldiers from both sides worked together to give their friends a proper burial, sometimes even holding joint services for the fallen. It was a moment of mutual respect and shared grief, a recognition of their common loss. Now, it's important to note that the Christmas truce was not a universal event. It happened spontaneously in various spots, primarily along the British and German lines. In other sectors, the fighting continued unabated. The French and Belgians, whose lands were occupied and had suffered more directly, were generally less inclined to fraternize with the German soldiers, and the high command on both sides was horrified. Generals were furious that their soldiers were making friends with the enemy. They saw it as a breakdown of military discipline that threatened the entire war effort. Orders were quickly issued forbidding any such fraternization. The top brass feared that if soldiers realized their enemies were human, they might lose the will to fight. As one British general, Sir Horace Smith-Dorrien, wrote, "This is only illustrating what I have always said, that our men and the Germans are too much alike. I have issued the strictest orders that on no account is intercourse to be allowed between the opposing troops," and so the truce had to end. In most places, it lasted through Christmas Day, and in some areas, even into Boxing Day or New Year's. But the pressure from above was immense. The return to war was often as strange as the truce itself. In some cases, a signal was given, like firing a shot into the air, to indicate that the truce was over. Soldiers would shake hands one last time, return to their respective trenches, and a few hours later, the shelling and sniping would resume. The war machine clanked back into motion. By Christmas of 1915, the war had become far more bitter and brutal. The staggering losses at battles like the Somme and Verdun, and the introduction of even more horrific weapons, had hardened attitudes on both sides. The generals had made sure it would never happen again. The brief window of humanity had closed. The war would drag on for 3 more devastating years, claiming millions more lives. So why do we remember the Christmas truce? Why does this story continue to captivate us over a century later? I think it's because it serves as a powerful reminder that even in the darkest of times, in the most inhumane of circumstances, our shared humanity can shine through. It shows that the divisions of politics and nationality are artificial constructs, and that the natural impulse of ordinary people is not to hate, but to connect. It was a protest, not of banners and slogans, but a quiet, heartfelt protest against the madness of war, carried out by the very men ordered to fight it. The Christmas truce is a testament to the soldiers' courage, not just the courage to face enemy fire, but the courage to see the enemy as a fellow human being. It's a story that gives us hope. It teaches us that peace isn't just the absence of conflict, but the active presence of understanding, empathy, and connection. And on that frozen Christmas in 1914, for a few precious hours, the soldiers on the Western Front showed the world what that truly means. Thank you so much for joining me on this look back at a truly remarkable moment in history. What do you think of the Christmas truce? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more stories from the past. We'll see you in the next one.